Hey, if you've ever thought about joining the Motivate with Coach Camp team, I'm going to let you know something. Now's your opportunity. So right now we are taking sponsors. And if you would like to be a sponsor, hey, look at the bottom of my podcast, click that link, fill out that information form, and we are going to get back to you. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Coach Camp. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Motivate with Coach Camp, produced by Shelby Road Productions. This podcast is intended to inspire, enlighten, motivate, encourage, and lead by example. So sit down, buckle up, and get ready to grow as we dive into this week's episode of Motivate with Coach Camp.
Wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I, of course, am your host, Coach Camp, and we are down here in these new fancy schmancy studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Mishu. Look, if you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, dude, his studio is growing, and it is looking nice. I'm just saying, I am very blessed to be a part of this. So let's kick off this episode. I just want to talk to y'all for a second about some things. As we have eased into December, and y'all have probably paid attention if you've been listening every week, that I kind of switched it up a little bit. I was doing series a lot of times. I put together 3, 4, even as many as 5 different types of stories, all in the same kind of, category. Well, I want to kind of mix it up some. So I want to start doing individual stories. I want to start talking to people, and from one week to the next, it could be quite a variety. And so this idea came to me, and I happen to know this individual, and I thought about things, and I said, this is a story that needs to be told. This is something that I've not even seen out there. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I am saying that I've not seen this. I've not come across it. And so I am going to just leave that as a little teaser as we blend into it. But my guest this week is Mr. Dennis Bowen. He has held a lot of hats. When you want to talk about the first responder world, I believe he's checked most all the boxes. He is a friend of mine. I'm friends with his wife as well. We've known each other for some time now, and we're going to blend in some of those stories as we talk about things. But at this time, I want to just welcome in Mr. Dennis. How's it going, buddy?
It's going good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming out on this kind of cold, dreary day. But that's all right because it's nice in the studio.
It's nice in here. This is really awesome.
I'm telling you, man, the lights and stuff. Derek Mishu is next level. That is a fact. He is next level. So let's get to know you just a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about where you're from and family, growing up, stuff like that?
Right. So originally I'm from Memphis.
Okay.
I wasn't born in Memphis, but as a child I went to some elementary schools here there, and we eventually moved in the 80s, moved to Tupelo, Mississippi, graduated high school there, went to Itawamba Community College to form the paramedic program.
Okay, so I didn't realize you went to Itawamba.
Yeah.
How's their paramedic program? Is it good back then?
It was good. I think we had a bad class.
Yeah, it happens. Southwest is your best choice. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think we were like, everybody was passing registry the first time until they got to our class.
Oh, wow. Trendsetters.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway.
So, how many years ago was that?
Went to paramedic school, around 97 to 98.
Okay. And so how old are you right now?
I am 46.
46. So 97, 98. Wow, you were a baby.
Yeah. Absolutely. I got into basic school right in 96, 97. I think it was the Tupelo campus of ICC.
Okay. How old were you at that time?
I think I was around 20.
20. Yeah. That's what I was kind of figuring in my head here.
Yeah.
I'm not great at math. I'm really bad whenever you start putting letters in there. I'm like, that is not math anymore. Yeah. Now we're writing sentences. But anyways, so you got into this really early. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
One brother.
One brother. And with older or younger?
Younger. He's like, he's 3 years younger than me. And he drives trucks.
Okay. Yeah. So I get a little bit of a history, a little background, excuse me, because I want to know what leads people to doing certain things and what draws their interest.
Right.
So at 19, 20 years old, what brought you in the idea of like, hey, I'm going to be a first responder?
When I was, when we were growing up in Memphis, my mom was a registration clerk and worked at Methodist Central, right?
Okay.
And she raised us as a single mom. And a lot of the times she couldn't afford childcare, babysitting, etc. So we would actually go and sit in the ER while my mom worked her shift.
Wow. How old were you probably at that time?
I would say we're around 7 to 8.
So your influence immediately is you're
Right.
in a hospital setting,
Right.
seeing people come and go that obviously need some kind of attention, care.
Exactly.
And that drew your interest.
Yeah. I mean, because the units were coming in
Mm-hmm.
and we were seeing paramedics. I'm around healthcare workers. So from that, that's where my mom met my stepdad. And my stepdad was a mechanic for the air medical there.
Okay.
Right. So she met him. And then now I'm exposed to flight medics and flight nurses.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, as a kid, look, I'm going to say this. I've said it before on some other episodes, but it was Johnny and Roy. That's what did it for me. I saw them and immediately I was like, man, I was hooked. I was like, that is exciting. That's adrenaline pumping. And as a kid, you're not thinking those ways necessarily, but you are thinking how cool that is.
Right.
So you're seeing up close, first hand, things that are not on TV, obviously.
Yeah.
And this is interesting, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing, look, me and my brother are watching these people roll in and they're doing CPR on them and their pukes coming out of their mouth.
Wow.
And we're seeing all this as kids.
Yeah. So it's either going to, I think that's one of those moments where it's either going to like excite you or you're going to be freaked out by it and be like, I don't want any part of that.
Right.
So it's usually not a gray area.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
so clearly we know which direction you went.
Right. And and when we left Memphis, when we went to Tupelo, it was because of my stepfather's work. He got a contract in Tupelo at the air evac there.
Okay.
And once again, we were around the helicopter, we were around flight medics, we were around nurses, we were around all these healthcare providers. And so, when you're you really don't know what you want to do when you're in high school.
Sure.
But I kind of started leaning that direction, got interest in that. I went into the Tupelo Fire Department Explorer program.
Uh-huh.
I did a couple of years of that. And then I said, well, I want to be an EMT.
Yeah. So that's the next obvious step, right?
Right. Exactly.
Formal training at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you've been around it. So it wasn't like you were going into it blind. I will say, just blending this conversation, whenever I went into it, I had no idea what to expect. I had been a part of none of the stuff other than what I'd seen on TV. So you obviously had seen real world.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And so we were exposed to it. And then, and me and my brother were, and my stepdad, he was a military, Vietnam vet.
Okay.
So we had somewhat of a structured lifestyle, and that's the kind of way it went. And we were kind of, I think my brother, not necessarily as much as I was, because I kind of latched onto it and kind of like that's my goal.
Yeah, the flag went up. You're like, this is it.
Yeah,
I've landed.
Yeah.
So when you get out of school, where do you go to work right away?
Paramedic school. I go to.
So you went straight from basic to paramedic?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, yeah. No, I went to basic, and then at the time you could go into. You got into EMT intermediate, and then I went straight through. I didn't stop it and take the registry. I went straight through and got my paramedic.
Okay.
And I passed it the first time, thank God.
Yeah. Well, I got news for you, man. This is a hard test.
Yeah.
And if you walk out of there and think to yourself, I probably failed, chances are you passed. If you walk out of there like, I crushed it, you probably failed. It's one of those kind of weird things. But and I know the years that you're talking about. So you were taking like the bubble in answer test.
That's what I think I think it was Shelby State, was it?
It used to be Shelby State.
Yeah. We did our practicals the first day, and then the next day we came in and take the written. I remember people just sitting there taking that test, and they started crying, and then you can see the emotions on people's faces.
I've seen some of that recently. I teach that. So when it gets close to the end of the semester, anxiety levels go up. So you finish up paramedic school. Where do you go to work first?
My first job was actually with Tupelo Fire Department. They sent me through the academy, and they are a strictly firefighting department. They were starting to run first responder calls.
What year was this?
This was 98.
Okay.
And I went to the Mississippi Fire Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys I met there, Sam, he came up to visit me. And he's like, hey, man, we have firefighter paramedics down here. And when I started working at Tupelo, I think we started out at like $19,000 a year.
Yeah. We weren't breaking the bank.
No. And then so he's like, hey, you come down here and you can be a firefighter paramedic. You'll do both. And you can, I think it was like $26,000 a year or something like that. And I was like, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Plus this was like, okay, this is my opportunity to leave the house. Cause I was living still with my mom and dad.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. And it was West Point Fire Department.
Okay.
And
very busy?
No.
Not really?
No. It was kind of the part that's when I found out, that's where in West Point you had 2 fire stations, but you also, you did 911 calls, right? But you're also responsible for like hospital to hospital transfers. So you would go and say we did have a fire. You would fight a structure fire. You'd be on the unit.
Mm-hmm.
You would respond with the fire truck. There would be 4 people on scene initial, right? Your backup is coming across town and it's just an engine. Right?
Yeah, one engine. Yeah.
And you go in and you fight this house fire. So I get off the unit,
mm-hmm.
my turnouts, get my air pack, go in and fight the fire, get off, finish the fire, overhaul all of it. There's no truck companies.
Yeah.
Right. And then say, oh, by the way, there's a emergency transfer over at the hospital and you're going to be taking this patient to Jackson.
Hope they like the smell of smoke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's rural U.S. I don't think that is so distant to us now that it doesn't exist. Yeah. I would believe there's parts of America that still does happen. Because I started out in Eudora. And, you're 30 minutes to a scene, maybe an hour to the hospital, depending on where it landed.
Right.
And so rural U.S. and EMS systems, and there's a lot of volunteer fire departments, obviously. So it's not even like that's the majority. The majority is volunteer, and the majority of EMS services are typically private. So you don't have you have fire-based services, but it's probably obviously a lot more now than it was back in the 90s. But that was a growing thing. You think about it, you were only 20 years removed in 1998 from the inceptions, really.
Right.
I mean, granted, EMS started in the 60s, but it really didn't start catching fire until the 70s.
Right.
So you were barely a quarter century into this stuff.
Right.
So how long were you at West Point area?
Not very long, because that's when I met Amanda.
Okay. She was down there?
She was working at Tibbahall County Hospital.
Huh. I never knew that.
She was in paramedic school, and due to her age, the only place that would hire her, I think, was Tibbahall County. And I went over there to work just part-time. On my off days, with working at the fire department, you're only 10 days a month. You got plenty of time to work on your off days. So I went over there where I was working part-time, and that's where I met her.
Okay.
And we became involved in a good relationship, and she's like, I'm just going to let you know, I'm trying to get on Memphis Fire Department, and I'm going, and I'm going to live with my mom. And she didn't give me an ultimatum, but I was like, I followed her.
Yeah, well,
I mean, if I wouldn't have met Amanda, I don't know.
Where you would have landed.
I don't know where I would have landed, but that's what got me. That was the primary thing that
you could be running West Point Fire Department.
I could be the chief. Thanks a lot, Amanda.
Yeah. She'll probably not listen to it. She will. Yeah. She'll listen to it. Yeah. My wife doesn't listen to them. I call her out every time. I'm like, so she listened to one. I had an extra viewer one time. So what year was this that you guys are making this big transition up to?
99. She got on Olive Branch Fire Department. They hired her as soon as she got her medic license.
That's going to happen.
Yep. And she got on as a straight medic. Memphis calls it single role paramedic. I think that's the stupidest thing ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, nobody's going to hear that, though, from the administration.
I don't care if they do hear it.
That's right. I get what you're saying.
Because, like, when I went hired on in South Haven, I was a paramedic. Right. Yeah. You're a medic.
You're a medic. That's it.
Why you have to add this to the front of it, make us even more isolated.
That is true.
Put the spotlight on us, come on.
Yep. You're the stepchild on that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So here you are, following your love,
Right.
brings you up to North Mississippi.
Right.
She gets on Olive Branch.
I get on South Haven Fire
and
Department.
you got on South Haven. What year was that you started? Because that's actually where we met.
Yep. I believe that I started December of 99 and my first day was Christmas Day.
Okay. So I got my paramedic license in 2001, but I was already in EMS and fire in 99. So then I end up doing paramedic school in like 2000. And when I'm in school, I get, you do clinicals and I get sent over to Station 2. And that is where I meet Mr. Dennis Bowen for the first time. You're over there.
Me and Skeeter.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Man, dude, I hadn't heard that name forever. It's like 150 years old now, ain't he?
He passed, actually.
Did he really?
Yes.
Man, what a great
That
dude.
was like that's my bud.
Yeah.
I miss him so much.
Oh, man, he's a great person. Great person. He had been on the fire department forever. And
Yeah.
so you get over there and you're working, and I come up and ride a clinical with you.
Okay.
Do some clinicals. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you remember that, because I know me personally, I had a lot of students over the years don't remember when they rode with me.
Right.
But we make a call that stayed with me forever.
Really?
You have no idea what I'm about to say, do you?
No, I don't.
We didn't script this, y'all. He had no idea this conversation was about to happen. But then again, my guests never know. So we're on this call. It's a diabetic call. And we're trying to, I'm like, I'm student mode.
Right.
So I'm a little bit awkward because I'm trying to figure out my role in the field out here. And I don't want to get in the way of the paramedic, and you're working on the person. And so I'm trying to get to a better position to get a blood sugar.
Okay.
In the process, it's a tight space. Knock the table down. There's like these lancets go flying across everywhere. And I'm just like, holy crap, I am going to be fired before I get started. And I know that blends into your days, and it's like a nothing burger.
Right.
But it just mattered so much to me because I was young and I was trying to be impressionable. And I'm like, God, dog, I am an idiot.
Wow. I don't remember that.
I wouldn't expect you
I hope
to.
I didn't say something crazy. I probably didn't.
You didn't even blink an eye. It was
Really?
just like normal everyday work. It's like, don't worry about it. We just kept moving.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? I've had so many memory moments that are like that. And then what's funny is now it's full circle, because I have students coming back to me or people I rode with back in the day, and they'll bring up some moment that was just, it's a stamp in their brain.
Right.
And I have no idea what they're talking about. But I don't doubt any of it.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the business. So how long were you at South Haven?
I was at South Haven for about 2 years.
Okay. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
And from there, you went to Memphis, right?
Yeah. Amanda was working. She got through the academy. She was working for Memphis Fire. And then it was the cattle call to get hired.
Yeah.
Like now, you just put your...
They drive down the street, I think,
Oh,
like an
God.
ice cream truck, dinging
Yeah.
the bell, and they're like, get in the back. You want to be a firefighter? Get in the back.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you had to fight for it.
Yeah, there are thousands of people show up.
Thousands. I was at that cattle call in 1999.
Yeah.
I know all about it. It took a minute.
Right. And so there was a firefighter that worked at South Haven. He left. He left. He was there, and then he left to get hired on MPD. And then he came back to the station one day, and he said, "Hey, man, look, they'll hire you just like that."
You're talking about the police department.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
They were like, they were hiring anybody they could.
So then you worked for Memphis Fire, though, right?
No, I did not.
So you were going to, but then you didn't.
Yeah, because I couldn't get on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it was like the class that Amanda got hired, they only hired, I think there was like maybe less than 60.
Yeah.
And they weren't putting these multiple classes back to back to back yet.
So I think that's part of the story here, obviously. So I knew part of your history. I knew that you had come up in fire and EMS and that you were a paramedic first. And I was confused a little bit because I didn't ask all the questions, but I did not realize that was where you went from South Haven Fire Department into Memphis Police Department from
Right.
that moment.
Right.
What year was that? Was that 2000?
That was 2001.
2001.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it was like, yeah. So it was 2001 when Amanda had gotten hired by Memphis then.
Right.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and I was actually looking at it as a back door to Memphis Fire. Like,
Sure.
Okay, well, I'll get into the system. I'll get on with the city. And then when it comes up, I'll have first choice on that. And I'll be able to apply and get in that way.
Mhm.
That was my thinking.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that? I say funny, but it's just that goes on both sides. I know people that started with fire, and their goal was to be on the police department, so they transition over. Then they get on the police department, come over to the fire, and it's just it is interchangeable to an extent, something you may not know that's just a caveat of this conversation. I started out to be a police officer. I had my associate's degree in criminal justice. I was going to be a police officer. And then in the Air Force, a guy moved in next to me, right, 2 weeks before I get out, and he's a firefighter. And he tells me the story, and he's like, yeah, we only work 10 days a month, and you run these emergency calls. And I'm like, that sounds cool, and I think chicks dig firefighters, so I'm in. Count me in on that.
Yeah, right. Right, exactly. Yeah.
So when you go up to Memphis Police Department, how's Amanda feel about that in that moment?
Man, Amanda was supportive. My family was not.
Were you married then?
We were not.
So you are still dating. Okay, so your family was like, no way.
Oh my God. I told my family, I said, hey, look, I gave us a birthday party or something. I said, hey, look, just going to let y'all know, Memphis called me and I took the job. And my grandmother literally got ill, got up and left the dinner.
Are you serious?
They were, let me tell you, my family was completely against it.
Is it safe to say there's no police officers in your immediate family?
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm like, no. First responders. I do have a family member as a cousin. A cousin and her husband is a cop, I believe. I don't want to. I may be.
So what you're getting at is,
I'm like, it's
the branches are pretty far out there before you find another one.
You're not gonna. There's no history of first responders or law enforcement.
So let's be fair about this, all right? So it's not like you came to your family and said, "I'm going to be a police officer down in Walls, Mississippi."
No,
you were going to Memphis,
right?
And if we just gonna call a spade, it's a dangerous city.
Right.
And it was dangerous back then. It's more dangerous now.
Right.
And if you look across the country on a regular basis, and I know it's per capita, so I get how the stats are done. It is in the top 3 to top 5 most dangerous cities in America year after year.
Yes. Yes.
Were you thinking to yourself at times, I must be crazy?
No, I didn't think that. I didn't think I didn't think that. And see, we're eating at that dinner at that particular time. My family had already moved out of Memphis. That's how dangerous it was.
For sure.
Right. So they were out of Memphis, and now I'm going into Memphis to be a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think about the danger.
Yeah.
I didn't think anything like, I don't know what I was thinking, honestly. I mean, as far as that, because I would say that I didn't live a sheltered life, but in Mississippi, in a small town, you're a medic, you're a fireman. They love to see you.
Mm-hmm.
They're glad you're there.
Yeah.
And, it's different. And I wasn't prepared to what I was going to have to deal with when I came into Memphis.
Look, you are preaching to the choir on that part. And I think that there is this is a good moment to mention this, is that it is easy to be naive, not that you're sheltered, but that your experiences have been different.
Right.
You could be out in the world and have very different experiences than a certain culture that you walk into.
Right.
Point in case, as a firefighter paramedic in Mississippi, I was down here for 3 years before I went to Memphis, and I got to be honest with you, I thought I was ready. I thought I was groomed. I'd been on South Haven for almost a year, running plenty of calls. My first shift in Memphis, I made 2 shootings by noon. I had made 2 shootings in 3 years in Mississippi.
Right.
The game changed quick.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not different for police.
No.
You're walking into a different universe. This isn't even a different world. This is a different universe.
Right.
If you have any other experiences, throw them out the window because you're about to get educated quick.
Right. Yeah. And that is, I've never been me and my brother used to fight, but I've never been in any fist fights when I got hired on MPD. And the first fight that I got into that was a stranger was, they make you box. I don't know if they do it now, but we had to box like our fellow recruits and for like 1 round or something like that. And that was my first time ever even putting on boxing gloves, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a wake-up call, I bet.
Yeah. And, in the academy, you start learning, you learn officer safety. You have to watch these videos of dash cam videos of officers being shot and killed and getting in shootings.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a wake up. I was like, well, hang on, man, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't dumb enough to say, oh, that's not going to happen. But you're like, it's different from going to being a paramedic where you stand by, you wait on scene for MPD or police to make it safe.
Sure.
Then you show up. And then people are usually glad to see you.
Right.
Now you're going up there and you are the police that can make the scene safe. you're dealing with this. And so it was a different world.
Yeah, it's a different engagement. And you bring up a great point in the fact that you had been geared in one direction, and being a firefighter paramedic, I'm not saying you let your guard down, so I don't want to come across wrong, because my students would eat me up if they say, oh, you said the scene wasn't safe. No, you are supposed to have your guard up. You should be constantly paying attention to your environment. That said,
yeah, I tell you a funny story. I'm going to tell you a funny story. Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. So this is a story about Amanda.
Okay.
So me and her were riding together in Starkville. We make a DV call, right? And so police were on scene. All right, we're off on some county road. Mm-hmm. It's in a trailer. It's a DV call, and the sheriff's department's out in the yard. It's like, yeah, they're in there. So I'm like, okay. So Amanda just says, okay, yeah, I'm walks on in there, and all of a sudden I see the guy like raising up a bat to go hit his significant other, and I'm like, Amanda, stop! And I'm like, they're in there fighting. So you have to keep. EMS, first responders, period. Right. You have to keep it up because the police are on scene. It's supposed to be safe.
Right.
And he's re-engaging his significant other in the house and about to assault her with a bat.
I drive that point home all the time. Scene safety is not something that's, just static. You walk in, it's safe. Now you can go. It's constantly evolving.
Right.
And to that point, though, I think, as an EMS responder, as a firefighter, you can start to let your guard down a little bit, and you can get comfortable with the call.
Yeah.
And as a police officer, that should never happen. I'm not saying it should happen as an EMS or firefighter, but your job is very specific. You come there as a paramedic, you realize once the scene has kind of started to develop, and you know that you're there for whatever that reason is, and let's just say hurt foot.
Right.
Once you've kind of mitigated some of the things there, you can pretty much focus on the foot a little bit. As a cop, you always have to be not just leery of what's happening directly in front of you, what you were called for, but all the other engagements going on around you.
Right.
And that can actually change very quickly for a police officer, and the scene can get very out of hand quickly.
Right.
And it doesn't take anybody's imagination to think about a moment, because it's all over the news all the time.
Right.
You see this stuff.
Right.
So going into this, you've just discussed how you had to reset your mind, how you approached scenes, how you handled problems that came up. Talk to me a little bit about your first year. Talk to me a little bit about some of the calls that were wake-up moments.
Man, I was raised old school law enforcement.
Okay.
And I was raised by some guys that rode out of the West Precinct on Union. So I got to learn old school policing, and some of the stuff that we saw and experienced, man, it was great. My first year was great. The biggest highlight of my first year was the Rosamond shooting. It was some guys bought some dope. It was bad dope. So I guess they went back to the dope boys to get a refund. All right.
Yeah, I think you can call the police on that too, I think. These guys ripped us off.
Exactly. So in their wisdom, they got armed. The dope boys got armed and chased the customers back to a house. Well, the customers ran through the house and jumped out the back window. But the house was full of family, including children. They stood outside that house and mag dumped, right? And I was the second car on scene. And I remember running in the house because at that particular time, I think that I was not law enforcement. I think I was law enforcement, but I was medic.
Yeah.
Because, it came across there's multiple people shot.
Yeah.
And I walk in the house, and the first thing I do is I stumble over a lady. She's got gunshot wound to her femur. The next room, there's a kid shot. And then we go to the back bedroom, and there is, I think one of my partners was on scene there. I can't remember if he was there first, or there may have been 3 people, but I believe I was the second patrol car, but there was somehow or another, there was another officer that came into that room. And the kid's shot her name was Jessica Bonner. She was 3 years old. She was shot, her arm was blown off.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And she was shot through the abdomen, and her intestines were hanging out. And then laying right next to her was her mom, who was shot in the chest.
Dang.
And so me and the I wish I could remember his name, but I don't. We started working on the kid.
Yeah.
Memphis Fire gets there, and the the medic said he got it, so we just assisted ventilating, and he intubated the kid, and I held the tube, and I was like really protective of the tube, and he didn't say anything to me. And later to come to find out, he was like, I knew something was up with that guy, the way he protected the tube.
Yeah.
It is just me being a medic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So me, that medic, and the other officer was with me. We got to help get that kid into the unit, and that made national news.
Wow.
Yeah, that was big. It was it was probably one of the first mass shootings. Well, they weren't called mass shootings then, right?
Yeah.
But it was a mass shooting because it shot 4 people in the house, 5 people maybe.
Yeah.
And there was some fatalities.
Yeah.
Right. So, that was my first true experience on what humans could do to each other.
Yeah. I was going to ask this, but you just answered it. And that is, did you find yourself drifting toward paramedic thinking on police calls? And clearly you did.
I did.
And it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's there.
Right. And it's, at the time, medical thinking and medic thinking, and as a law enforcement officer, wasn't really, I say, a positive.
Yeah.
They tried to get SWAT medics on Memphis police, and it was shot down.
I know. I taught part of that class that came through.
Right.
Yeah.
And now everybody's got a tourniquet.
Yeah. Right.
They
got Narcan in their cars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the time it was like, hang on, man, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm helping people.
Right.
Right. These are innocent people.
Right.
This is a family that's just got shot up.
And you can't just put your medical knowledge on the shelf and act like it's not there.
Right. When am I going to go put up some crime scene tape and start a crime scene log?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So that's, you know what though? I think that is the big picture there, is the fact that it's tough sometimes to balance out job performance, so to speak. But in what you just said in that scenario, that's the kind of thing that should be rewarded, because you weren't derelicting the duty of a police officer in that second, and you were doing something as a paramedic. If I pull up and I see police officers doing these things, I'm like, hallelujah. Hey, y'all freaking you right in with me, because ultimately I think that's the big goal, right? Is protecting people, whether you're a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, doesn't matter. Protecting people is the goal. And you clearly were cutting edge on that. Yeah. You were cutting edge. You were a part of the future, and you just didn't know it in the moment.
I didn't. And, there was not an active threat. There wasn't an active shooter situation. Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't know that. At the time, I was just being a medic. I was just trying to help someone.
Yeah.
Right.
To put this into a layperson's mind, think about if you know how to speak 2 languages and you're talking or you're writing in particular. And I've had a lot of friends that had this, especially some of my Spanish friends, and they cross over a lot of times. They'll be writing in Spanish and then write back in English, or they're speaking that way and their mind's trying to translate. Think about that as a medic or a police officer. You're trying to dual role here, because in the end, that's how you're wired.
Right.
You are suddenly wired this way.
Right.
Okay. So obviously your calls are the ones that medics make later after you've secured the scene.
Right.
Tell me just a little bit real quick about what was it like the first time that you found yourself on a dangerous scene by yourself? Because that's one of the things, you make scenes in pairs, but I'm just speaking from experience. Police officers sometimes have to show up by themselves first.
Right. So one of the calls that stands out to me is there was at roll call, there was a stabbing that went out, and I was running out of the Mount Moriah precinct.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go down to 321's ward, which is pretty much Shelby Drive, Tulane, that area.
Yeah.
And so I had to respond all the way from there. And when I got there, it was for a stabbing call, and the neighborhood was out. All right. And it was off Sumner's Wells area. And they were out and they were mad.
Mm.
And I go to get out of the squad car by myself. And I look down the driveway and I see a male unresponsive, and I see another male leaning over here, like rocking and crying.
Mm-hmm.
And there's knives all over the ground and there's glass. Well, there was a DOA, and what happened was he got in a fight with this guy, stabbed him, and the bystander said that he was stabbing him so hard that his knife was going through his chest and hitting the concrete on the other
Jeez
side.
Louise.
And it's like, you can hear it banging,
Mhm.
banging. And I didn't know he was a suspect at the time.
Yeah.
But I took him into custody. And if it would have broke bad, I don't know the situation, what's going on here, right? But you have at least 30 people out in the street.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a DOA, and I've got the suspect leaning over him, crying,
Mm.
you know, and I had to take him into custody. And I was out there by myself for a good maybe 15 minutes.
And that is not something you face as a firefighter paramedic.
No.
You're never showing up by yourself. You always at least have your partner.
Right.
And
So,
it's
yeah.
definitely
And
different.
so what's funny about that is MFD actually showed up prior to me getting there.
Mm.
And they had to leave the scene because of the scene.
That has happened. I did that several times.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so when I cleared the scene, made it safe, like I said, told dispatch, and then the medic shows up. I don't remember who it was, but I remember her freaking out. I don't know.
Yeah.
She was like freaking out at me. I'm like, look,
Yeah.
I just got the call. I came from Mount Moriah precinct all the way down to Shelby Drive and wherever, Tullahoma area, you know, just to kind of give people like, if you're familiar with it, it's a stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had that Chevy Impala. It was smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sure I had to go take it to the shop.
Oh, no doubt.
You know,
Yeah.
but you know, those situations, that's a situation where is one I had to, I mean, I got more, but
Yeah.
something that stands out to you.
Right.
Like I can still see it today.
Sure.
Right.
Those images don't go away. I
Right.
mean, trust me, I carry around a whole bucket of them.
Right.
And the reason why I wanted to go down a little bit of the road and some of the stories and some of the things that you've read and been on, not just fire side, but definitely on the police side, is I want to lay a foundation.
Okay.
And with all my guests that come in, you know, it's not enough to just go straight to a story. People always have this moment, this climactic moment in their lives, and that's a lot of times what they're coming on the show to talk about, unless it's like an organization or something. But what you have to understand before you get to those moments is what is the perspective of that individual? What have you been through? What have you seen? What are your experiences? And ultimately, it paints a picture, I think, for the person out there that's not been a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, et cetera, because it's really easy to get stuck in your world. Just as we said, we were both EMS in Mississippi.
Right.
We had an idea of what we thought life was going to be like in the emergency world.
Right.
And when we went in our respective ways into Memphis, it was a big fat slap and wake up call.
Right.
That is not life everywhere. But for a person that doesn't live in an inner city, that's not been a part of these moments, they really cannot envision what that looks like. What that looks like to have that kind of chaos going on.
Right.
It's like a war scene at times.
Yes.
You know, and that's what I wanted to do real quick, is I want to build a little bit of that picture about what it is we had to face. And I say again, okay, I'm not a police officer, but we've been in the city of Memphis.
Right.
You know, we are facing this together. We are a team. Firefighter, police, they are counting on each other for a lot of things.
Right.
I wanted to build that picture. And
Okay.
so we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of what took place later in your life. That was a pivotal moment. Obviously, it changed a lot about not just who you were, but maybe everything that people even that are in your circle, your family. It was
Right.
an impactful moment. Before we get there, I want to take a quick break from my sponsor. So bear with me. We're going to be right back right after this word.
Boba Cream is a veteran-owned, family-friendly business serving delicious boba tea and desserts with a commitment to quality and customer satisfaction. 131 West Commerce Street, Hernando, Mississippi. Go to msbobacream.com for more information.
All right, welcome back. And just before we took the break, I was talking here to my friend, Mr. Dennis Bowen, and building a little bit of the story about his background, fire EMS, and then eventually police department here in the city of Memphis, Tennessee. Dennis, now, here's the thing. I don't want you to feel like you have to say anything you don't want to say, but I want to get into something I know that was a pivotal moment, and it's something that I wanted to bring light to myself. On this platform, it is about positivity, and this does have a positive end to it as far as you, the person, life in general. And I want to give some perspective. I think that it's not a stretch to say in society and in the media, there is a certain light that is painted on police officers in general, but then first responders even, and that is not always accurate. You see in the news whenever there's a bad actor. And police officers can be bad actors, just like paramedics can be bad actors, doctors can be bad actors. You have them in every profession, every walk of life, but that's not the majority. The majority of people that do the jobs like what we've done, We do it because we care about others. We do it because you want to have an impact. You just shared a story about how you came into a scene that was chaotic, and immediately you knew the scene didn't call on your police services, but it needed your paramedic services, and you jumped into action. That is the heart of first responders. They care so much that it doesn't matter about their own personal safety. So often it is about what can they do to make the situation better for any individual.
Right.
So for you, I want you to start the story. You talk about as much as you feel comfortable with, but I know that there was a moment in your career where you had to make one of the most critical, difficult decisions that a police officer would never want to have to do, and you had to do it when you had to choose to protect yourself and others and shoot a victim, shoot a criminal.
Right.
And it created obviously a storm of PTSD and everything else that we can touch on. But if you don't mind, build us into that story, talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. So, I was working a Delta shift, which is 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. And, I was actually back in that ward 321's ward, and it may be different now, or maybe it's 521. I can't remember. But anyways, I was in that ward by myself. I was actually in the ward by myself that night. Mm. So I was hanging out on the north end of the ward around other officers.
Okay.
Because, if you're in a ward by yourself, you don't want to get into anything.
Well, no.
Right?
No,
I mean, it's not safe.
It's not.
It's not safe. So the call originally came out for a carjacking. All right. And I was dispatched to it. And I was dispatched to it to go to the victim, check on the victim, and do a report and put out a broadcast.
How many years had you been on at that point?
2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was it. And so what was interesting, well, it's not interesting, it's fate, I believe.
Okay.
But dispatch gave me the wrong address. And the address led me to the car.
Interesting.
With the person still in the car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the victim location wasn't the right address. In fact, the address that she sent me to was bad numbers, and it was like an abandoned warehouse, or it was a field or something like that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, going to that wrong address, I turned around and came back, and there was the car. And I said, oh my God, there it is. And it was moving. And so I ran the tags, came back, signal W, which yes, this is the vehicle taken in the carjacking. It matches the description. And there was a brief chase. And at the end of the chase, during the chase, we went down a dead end, and the person bailed out and started shooting. I returned gunfire.
Yeah. At that time, you're still by yourself, right?
I'm still by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember them say, hey, look, the lieutenants, look, when police officers hear that you're chasing, they're adrenaline junkies. They want to get involved.
They want to get there.
They want to get the bad guys.
Sure.
So I knew they were coming.
Oh, yeah.
And they were I heard over the radio, I think the lieutenant's like, hey, tell them to get the helicopter up, because I'm behind. This is a legit chase, right?
Yeah.
This is not a shoplifter. This guy just carjacked someone, assaulted him, and he's running. So, we're going to do what we got to do to get him.
Yeah.
Right. So, there was an exchange of gunfire, and after it, I did not know I hit him. So
were you out of the car at that point?
I was out of the car.
Yeah. So it comes to a dead end. I guess he jumps out.
Yeah. Starts shooting.
Okay.
I did not know I hit him. I stayed behind cover of my car.
Yeah.
Right. A guy was just watching after me, because, you have the gaps between your cars. You got a reactionary gap, and you can use your car as cover. And I had a great angle. I had a good reaction gap, and I stayed low when I was getting out of the car and stayed behind my car door. Even though a car door is not a really good place to stop bullets, it's something, right?
It's better than nothing.
Yeah, right. So, anyways, I didn't know he was hit.
Yeah. And
the next arriving officers, they actually went down there and they found him, and he was armed. He was DOA.
Yeah.
So
when you engaged and you got out of the car,
Right.
Look, I think about, so I'm just relating this to, I've never had that scenario, obviously, but I'm thinking about how when things get a little dicey on a fire scene and your adrenaline's there, but you have to slow your thinking down.
Right.
If you speed your thinking up, you're not going to think clearly. You're not going to be able to react properly.
Right.
You can train all you want with mannequins and pop-ups and all the other stuff.
Right.
That's probably, I'm going to say, a little different than real world.
Right.
What was that like in that moment for you?
Initially, it was shock.
Yeah.
You know, there's someone shooting at you, right? And so you have this flight or fight that starts, right? And then it turned to anger, a little bit of anger.
Yeah.
You know, because you're trying to kill me.
Right.
I'm not going to let you kill me. I'm going to fight.
Yeah, that's that survival kicking in.
Right.
Right.
And the training, you know.
And the training, yeah,
That-
absolutely.
And I'd see, I remember when I was talking about training, that's when we started training on doing tactical reloads. So you shoot, let's say, I don't know, you shoot so many rounds, but your mag, you automatically do a mag change and you keep your mag. So you have a fresh mag in and you got your other mag, you put it back in your, wherever you want to put it, I don't know, in your holster or whatever, or on your belt, so that you have a fresh mag in your gun. That's one of the things we picked up on training that I did. I remember that.
Isn't it funny how, though, that you train so much that you can't get it wrong, and then the moment when you don't have to think about it, you do it right.
Right.
And that's how you should train everything.
Right.
I try to drive that home to my students all the time.
Yeah.
So this moment obviously takes place. You're not at that moment, you're not aware of the condition or the situation with the
because it was from a safety perspective. Is there somebody else in the car?
Sure.
The guy went down into the wooded area. He could ambush me, counter ambush.
Mm-hmm.
It was better that I stay behind cover.
Yeah.
Do my mag reload, wait for backup, regroup, and then go in and see what we have.
So there's probably, unless you look back on it, and you probably didn't know in the moment, I would imagine, how long was it before the first arriving officer showed up after you? Yeah,
maybe 10 minutes. Maybe.
It's hard to know those things.
It's hard to know because
so much is going on in your mind.
Yeah, and there was actually an officer that wrecked out coming to that scene.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it started raining. Yeah. But once the backup got there, I never went down into the wooded area where they found the suspect. I stayed at the patrol car. And then once people started getting on scene and they realized, okay, this is a shooting, things changed.
Yeah.
Right. Crime scene comes out.
Yeah.
And you start this process.
So when the moment comes up and they come and tell you that the perpetrator is no longer with you,
right?
What is that thought process right there? What is going through your mind?
I just killed somebody.
Yeah. That's not something, I mean, you realize that's a possibility.
Right.
You don't wake up hoping.
No, because your adrenaline is way up.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you're starting to ease down and they're coming and say, dude, he's dead.
Yeah.
I said, my first question was, hey, please tell me he has the gun on him. You know, because I'm like, he shot at me, right? But you're like, in your mind, you're like,
trying to replay the moment.
Sure. She said, yes, the gun is in his hand.
Wow.
Right. I'm like, thank God, you know, because you don't, even then, it's not like it is now. Right. And we didn't have body cameras. We didn't have cameras in the car.
Mm-hmm.
All we had is like physical evidence, right? And what the crime scene had, right?
Yeah.
And witnesses. And so, post event, which was crazy. I had a union rep come out. I stayed with my union rep. They took my gun from me. They took the firearm. They had to count how many rounds I shot and recover whatever I had left. And then from there it was to get drug tested.
Mm-hmm.
And then at Methodist University,
mm-hmm.
or Methodist Central, where I used
it was
to
Met Central back in the day,
where I used to have to hang out all the time as a kid.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It is wild.
Oh, I got some more stories to it.
Full circle on that.
Dude, I'm telling you that there's a lot to it, but I don't want to get into a lot of it because I'm trying not to give too many identifying factors.
I understand that.
Yeah.
No, that's perfectly fine. The idea here, though, is the fact that, you're human. You're not a robot.
Right.
You were engaged in a situation where your life was in danger.
Right.
You reacted in the way that you had been trained.
Right.
Okay. And there were so many factors that led into that moment. Now you think about that in a split second, in less than a millisecond, you had to make a quick decision of what to do next.
Yeah.
And that decision, of course, was to return fire, to protect yourself, to get into a better position, to, hopefully shield yourself from any oncoming bullets. Those things happen in a blink of an eye.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how many ways that you can try to draw it up, dice it. I think that's one of the things that I have seen that is a problem at times is people try to be the Monday morning quarterback and their life has never been in danger.
Right.
They've never had to make that split second decision.
Right.
And understanding that you're a human being that had to do that without any warning that he was going to do that.
Right.
You're pulling up. I mean, obviously you're not expecting him to get out and greet you, but at the same time, you realize, you know, at that time, in that moment, if you don't respond appropriately,
right,
you're no longer here.
Right.
Now, that's the thing. After that, it doesn't go away.
Right.
That stays with you.
Right.
So the moving forward, the steps ahead, how does that start to affect you as you continue on with your job?
You know,
I know there's always the investigation, like you said, but
right.
then there's those moments that are you're by
right.
yourself.
Right. So, you know, that night you have to go to internal affairs. They take your badge from you.
Mm-hmm.
They take your gun from you. And
it's all procedure. Yeah, sure.
But you start losing your identity.
Yeah.
You know, and because they have to investigate it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it's fine. And then you get put on non-enforcement, right? And you're off. And so now here you are, you just got involved in a deadly force incident and they've taken all this away from you. And now you're walking around in this hypersensitive mindset. And you're like, what's happening? Mm-hmm. I remember like 2 or 3 days after it, I felt like people were just like, I don't know, you know, it made the news. It made a little clip of the news and stuff. But you're thinking, man, I wonder if people know. Do they notice me? I hope that, you know, you're like, I need to wear a ball cap or something, change my identity, you know, because, I mean, social media was getting big, but it was not like it is now.
Right.
Right. So you feel guilty.
Sure.
You feel like, you know, you feel like you've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And when you were actually okay. You know, you did the right thing. You followed procedure. You followed state law, and then the DA eventually cleared me. You know,
right.
But it was different then. They get a file. TBI was not involved. They take the file to the DA. The DA reviews it, witness statements, whatever, and they say justified or unjustified. You know, obviously it was justified. So
yeah, and looking at that, so here's the sad part of this that I'm hearing is that you walk around, and you just said it yourself that you were feeling guilty, but you're walking around with this suspect in your own mind of what just happened. Did I do the right thing?
Yeah.
Are other people going to understand that I did the right thing?
Right.
And that questioning is not even fair in the sense that, you know, under other people that's not done the job.
Right.
They cannot even start to wrap their head around or understand how difficult that moment is for the person that had to make that decision.
Right.
And you just spoke to that of how tough it was for you, the person that actually did it, to even be able to come to terms with that in yourself.
Right.
So at some point, obviously, you know, the case as it was cleared.
Right.
But that doesn't stop. It
No.
stays with you. So going back to work, did you go back to work as an officer?
I went back to work as an officer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. But I didn't feel right about it anymore. You know, I didn't feel right about it. Of course, you know, I don't mind talking about any of this, but you know, I started drinking heavily.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't think anybody on my waves that listen to my platform people are going to judge you.
Okay.
They're going to know. They're going to understand because I've given a lot of stories like this.
Yeah.
And so, that's what a lot of people turn to, right? So
Right.
some kind of substance abuse.
yeah,
So
I started drinking. Amanda, I was engaged to, I broke off the engagement. And we've talked about all this. So she's okay with me talking about it.
Yeah.
You get involved with bad relationships.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I lost my house, I lost my vehicle, and I quit the department. Just walked in and quit.
About how long after?
It was probably about right at a year,
Yeah.
close to a year. Well, maybe 8 months, and I quit. I walked in, I resigned. I had some family in Ocean Springs. I said, you know what? I'm just going to leave. I'm going to get away from Memphis. And they opened up their home to me. And I decided that I was going to go back into being a medic, you know, and getting away, it helped. But eventually I you know, me and Amanda worked things out.
Mm-hmm.
And said, can I come back? And she said, yes, you know, and I came back. And let me tell you, you know, I wish it was easy just coming back, but it was difficult because I still had those traumas, and I was still drinking, and it didn't get better. I think it actually got worse, And I remember one time I was asleep. I was probably sleeping off a hangover, and I felt like I was dreaming. I felt like there was chains on my arms and my legs, and I felt like this evil presence in the dream, and I felt like it was like the devil was coming after me. And I woke up and I screamed. Amanda ran in the room, and she was like, "What's going on?" I was like, I'd had this horrible dream, and I explained it to her. And my grandparents, who lived in Olive Branch, they're Christian. They're Christians. I'm a Christian, but they were 100% Christian. And they're like, "Look, you need to go to church." And so I started going to church, and and it was still a struggle. It's not easy. It's not like you're going to walk into some situation or there's going to be it was still a struggle, right?
Sure.
And I actually they had told me, he said, "Hey, look, there's a Christian counselor at church, and he's a psychologist." And it was Dr. Hughes. He's like, "You need to go talk with him." So I ended up going to talk to him. And
how long had it been after the situation?
That was probably it was almost over a year by then.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's like, he listened to me. We talked about the PTSD. We talked about, these traumatic events that happen in people's lives. And, at the end of it, by the way, I went over there and met with Dr. Hughes, and I was hungover.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the end of the meeting, he was like, "Can I help you with anything else?" I was like, "Yeah, I got to be baptized." I got baptized that day, right then.
Wow.
And pastor at the time was Brother Milligan, and he baptized me. And but I was baptized, and I was hungover from the previous night.
Well, you know what? God doesn't say, "Come to me when you're clean and ready."
I know.
He says, "Come to me when you're broken."
Right. So at that point in time, I started attending the church.
Yeah.
And I started attending church there. And I got my paramedic license back. There were some paperwork things I had to get done since I was out of it. Mississippi came across this thing, or they started this program where if you were out of the state for so long, you had to do this updates, and I didn't have the updates. It was something to go with the registry. It was something changing then. But anyways, I got my license back, and I went back to South Haven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that you were talking about how you had gotten away from everything. So you went down to Ocean Springs. You just checked out of everything for a while. What were you doing at that moment when you're down there?
Unemployed and drinking.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. That's why I was curious if you step back into some other kind of.
Yeah. I tried to get hired on with Acadian.
Okay.
Right. But I had my national registry, but there was a process, and the process is I had to, I deactivated my license for a registry.
Yeah.
So I had to go through the reactivation.
Okay.
I had to come up here and take my check-offs, and then for the state. And then there was a test, I think. Yeah. I can't remember, but it was a process. And so I was in the middle of that process, trying to get and living off of the retirement that I cashed out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stupid. I know.
Well,
but
look, hey, I've got news for you, though. It's those broken roads that make a person a stronger, better person with a story that can help other people. And honestly speaking, you wouldn't be the person that you are today. And we're going to get to that next part, which is going to be the positive, encouraging side of who Dennis Bowen is. But I think it's important to note this part that you mentioned how you turned to drinking to kind of, I want to just say that a lot of times people turn to any type of thing, substance abuse or vices in general, to try to run away from something. Right. And it's funny how when you're using something to run away from things, it only gets worse.
Right.
But the moment you turned and came to the counselor that led you back in the path of God, you were going toward something positive.
Right.
And whenever that happens, your life starts to change.
Right.
Things start to get back in order.
Right.
And all of a sudden, those roads that maybe at one point in time you didn't think you were ever going to get past or be able to turn around, you saw there was a light at the end of that tunnel, and you were able to go towards that. And I'll bring all this up because I want to make this point right here, right now, before we go to the rest of Dennis's story is, I know personally many friends, fire related in particular, paramedics, police officers, military members. I don't even want to exclude nurses. You see a lot of stuff, and a lot of times it's hard to understand why it's affecting you the way it's affecting you. You try to rationalize it. You try to work through it because we are independent people. And whenever you're in these lines of work, you are the one that is supposed to fix the problem. You're not one that's supposed to be a part of the problem. So when we are faced with these things, we don't understand necessarily that we are caught up in a moment where we need to ask for help. I want to let every single one of you know, reach out. Don't be scared. Don't feel like that you're doing the wrong thing or that you're going to be a problem or a burden. Look, I'm telling you, it is the strongest, most measured point to ask for help. It is one of those moments where I know that personally me, I have gotten into a position or a place in my life where I didn't feel comfortable talking about it or telling someone else or asking for help because that's not who I feel like I'm supposed to be. But I got news for you. It is so much better, and you will be such a better person for it, and everybody around you will appreciate it. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Dennis, I'm glad you did that, buddy.
Yeah.
The statistics are not healthy for those that never do.
Yeah. It's not good. The people, I know some people that are close to me that have gone the opposite direction and they've hit rock bottom.
Absolutely. And it happens all the time, actually. You know, it's a sad thing, but it's a reality. And that's why I'm so thankful that you're coming on here sharing your story, because I want people to see that vulnerability that people have, humans have, police officers have.
Right.
And so, you come out of this and you get back on South Haven Fire Department. How long are you there?
7 years.
7 more years.
Yeah.
Wow. I did not realize you worked there that much longer.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about that is, like, in the middle of that career, honestly, I'm still dealing with what happened to MPD.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, getting my life back together, becoming sober, dealing with the depression, the anxiety. And right out of there, I get, I have ulcerative colitis now. Right. And so I'm dealing with this ulcerative colitis. I'm trying to take the medicines, get in remission. And the gastrologist was like, dude, you're going to have to leave the 24-hour shift.
Yeah.
You can't do this. And not to be graphic, but I remember making a call for somebody for like cough congestion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my stomach is so messed up that I had to go into the room and I just filled the toilet in with blood on a call.
Jeez.
So I know that's crazy, man.
That is wild.
Yeah. So eventually I get into remission, and what it took is that I had to leave the 24-hour shift.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stressful job. Even when you don't think you're stressed, promise you. And then when you're dealing with previous PTSD,
right,
and you're constantly just re-exposed, just like having a cut on your leg, it starts to heal, and you just take that bandage and rip it off, and then rip it off, and then rip it off. It doesn't heal.
Right.
You got to get down the right, healthy path.
Right.
And so clearly at some point you did that. So was it just the counselor, or did you seek some other PTSD help?
I did. I went to a counselor. I've done, spoke with them, because I was like, okay, I'm going to take this whole approach different this time. If I leave South Haven, I needed to go a different route. So I went to a counselor. I went to the gastrologist. I was going to this, and everybody started pointing to one thing. It was the stress, sleep deprivation.
Absolutely.
The work environment, and just the nature of being in EMS. It was not healthy for me. And so, I had opportunity to go work in a hospital and just work as a tech in the ER. And I got into school, and I started at University of Memphis, and I was in degree in psychology. So I got 3 years in school, and then an opportunity came open out of the blue to work for Memphis Fire on a 12-hour shift.
And so you went to the, quote, much maligned single role.
Yeah.
Also just known as paramedic.
Yeah. Also just known as paramedic.
Yeah.
And it was the new program, started up 5 years ago. And so I would work a 12-hour shift, and I could be a medic. And anybody knows that working in the ER as a medic, it's kind of demoralizing.
It is.
Because
you have a lot of parameters you can't cross. And
right. You're an independent thinker. You're kind of an alpha. And then you're in where you're kind of like a low on the totem pole. And I learned a lot. Good people.
Sure.
Right.
It's the nature. It's not any entity. So it's not like a hospital's fault or a doctor's fault. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's just different rules.
Right. And it just happened to be at Methodist University.
Yeah, imagine that. Full circle, right?
Full circle,
That's where you started out at 7 years old sitting in a waiting room.
Right.
Now here you are back waiting in a waiting room a lot of times with a person on your stretcher.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
the irony there. And man, you know, when you think about life, I always do think about circles. And so you started out with that. And then, of course, you go down the road of the police officer. You go down Ocean Springs. You come back here. You get back into fire. You go into the South Haven Fire Department. Realize 24 hours ain't going to work. So you have this opportunity. And how long have you been now with Memphis as a single role? Has it been 5 years?
It's been 5 years.
So initially, you came in whenever they first started it back up.
I was. They had a class put together and 2 people dropped out. I'm one of the people they called. And my good friend, Zach Spears.
I know Zachary.
Yeah.
I taught him all he knows on the good side.
Yeah. And
if he's screwing up, man, I don't know nothing about that.
No, he's a good guy.
He is.
And they hired both of us. And I've been there 5 years. He's still there.
Yeah.
But he crossed over the fire side.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's it. And I've been there 5 years. I'm going to tell you, man, honestly, being a medic in Memphis.
I was about to ask you, how is it going at this point in your life right now?
Well, thank God I have God in my life because it's being a medic in Memphis is like being a cop without a gun.
Yeah, that's true.
Honestly.
Well, I've been there, done that, as you know.
I could say like some of the, I have had, I mean, wow. I've like the other day, I'll just say this. Since I've been in Memphis, I've had shots fired on scene. I witnessed someone get shot in front of me. I've had shots fired on scene of wrecks. And I can't tell you how many times we've been attacked.
Yeah.
And with four attacks within the last 3 weeks, where the most memorable one is we were offloaded a patient at Le Bonheur, and someone walks across the street into the ambulance bay and tries to attack me and fight me out of the blue. Like no prompting, no warning signs, no triggers or anything. And he just comes at me. Something told me to turn back around. I turned back around. He got really close. I stopped him, and then he gets into a fighter stance and tries to fight me.
Yeah.
And like,
so do you see all your police training now is helping you now on the reverse?
Yeah.
As a paramedic. Yes.
And also, one of the things that's helped me, all my police training has helped me as a medic. They have both
the intertwinedness.
Intertwined.
Sure.
But one of the things I'd say now, this is one of my, I guess would be a positive coping thing is I take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yep. You and Amanda both.
Yeah.
I see your post all the time.
Yeah. We train at Berserker Jiu-Jitsu in Midtown.
Yeah.
And I'm a purple belt now.
I don't know what that means, but that sounds important.
Yeah.
How high is that? How many stages?
6 years right now.
6 years.
You don't promote in jiu-jitsu. You don't promote fast. It's a drag. It's a grind.
Forgive my ignorance. That's one area I've never stepped into. So that's six years. That's a long time.
Yeah. And I would like to say this is if you're a first responder, if you're a cop, if you're a fireman, if you're a medic, you need some self-defense.
Yeah.
And you need something like maybe like jiu-jitsu, because it was going to help you control yourself, and it will help control a situation, and it will keep it from escalating into something that it doesn't need to be into. Because I believe what's happening in the nation and locally is that you go through a training academy, and if depending on where the academy, they don't give you enough for training, and then you stop. And there needs to be continuing training to be able to deal with these situations and get them under control.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the stuff in the news here recently, I'm not saying that jiu-jitsu is the thing, the end all be all, but a lot of it probably wouldn't have happened if you would have been a jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Yeah. Well, I mean, self-defense, it goes without saying.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's something that's needed, and
clearly
having some skills.
Skills and learning to control yourself.
Absolutely. 100%.
It's so easy to go and hit an innocent person, right?
Yeah.
You just go and punch them, right? Okay. A lot of people will, there is the bad part of the law enforcement.
Yeah.
Right. Where they use the badge and they can hurt people. I get that. And if you get somebody like that in a jiu-jitsu program and they get humbled and then they learn to control themselves, and the first thing they do is they don't go pull the gun, right? Or they're going to go punching somebody.
Right.
The outcomes would be a lot better. And I don't understand why the police departments across the world are not, in this country is not offering some initiative to get these people trained.
Yeah.
Right. So, I guess the biggest part that's helped me deal with Memphis is spiritual aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is going to church. And I gotta plug my pastor's church.
Do it.
I go to Grace Life Pentecostal Church in Memphis. Pastor Parkey. It's my pastor.
Okay.
I've been going there since I got into church. It wasn't Grace Life before. It was a different name, but it's Grace Life. And spiritual. You also have to have I believe a physical. Mm-hmm. Okay. I highly encourage any kind of running. Running's good. It's awesome.
I do a lot of that.
Yeah. I encourage definitely jiu-jitsu. That's my thing.
I say mind, body, and soul.
Right.
Mind, body, take care of all three.
Absolutely. And you know what? They have EAPs. There's different things. I've done hypnotherapy.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I've done hypnotherapy and it helped.
Yeah.
And the EMD, which is the devices that you hold. Yeah, I've done that. So it's not one particular thing that I can say, well, I don't want to say that. Yeah, I believe it's 100% God, but God gives us these other things, I believe, to help contribute to our mental and physical health.
Yep.
Right. And so that's where I'm at now.
Yeah. So I think that's the big part of the story here. And that's what I kind of wanted to bring out, was that going through some traumatic moments in your life and going to a dark place in your life,
right,
which can happen to any of us in the blink of an eye. Don't think for a second you are immune. Do not think for a second. Life will turn on its head in a dime. And what you're talking about, though, are the tools to get those things back and to be able to not just survive, but start to thrive again.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be the end of the road. You know, there can be a future. There can be a part of your personal life and who you identify as, in this case being fire, EMS, first responder, doesn't have to go away. And you found a balance.
Right.
Instead of 24-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, you know? And in the end, it does come down to this, you know, we have to be healthy and we have to be mindful of the necessity of not just being the best version of ourselves, but growing that person. And a lot of times that means that you do need to have a step back, and you had that step back and you were able to kind of see where some of the problems lie and you started addressing those things. And I mean, you know, to each his own, but for me, I'm very spiritual as well. The Lord is what guides me, leads me. And in the end, that's where I succeed and fail from, is how I keep my focus on him, the 100%. And so I agree with everything that you were saying there. And, I just guess I want that to be the message. That's what I want my listeners to take away from this is, you know, things are tough out there. Life can treat you tough. You can put yourself in a position where you never thought that you would end up being. And in this case, you didn't start out your life thinking, oh, I want to be an alcoholic one day. That wasn't the case, but it doesn't have to be the end of the road. So Dennis, to finish up some stuff real quick, I know that you are an artist.
Yes.
I've seen some of your drawings. Amazing.
Actually, I brought you something.
Love it. I wish that my viewers could see what we got.
This is
dude.
I'm doing, so yes, I have like a fly fishing lure / art. And so that is a Christmas ornament.
Bro, that is awesome. I'm going to put a picture of this up then.
It's hand painted. And
dude, that is some serious detail.
Yeah. It's acrylic. Awesome. It's acrylic and ink.
Man, I knew that you were an artist. That is phenomenal. All right, so I'm gonna put a picture up so my listeners can see that. Dude, that is rock star status. Make sure that I'm not leaving something in there, because I was like, I don't know what I feel. That is rock star, dude. I really appreciate that. No, so this, I would imagine, is therapeutic as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Fly fishing is very therapeutic.
I was about to ask about the fishing. Man. Yeah.
I mean, no, I say jiu-jitsu.
No, there's plenty of things. It doesn't have to be any one thing.
Well, yeah.
So, make bullet points, man. This is a recipe. You don't just put one ingredient.
So here's the thing. If I left Memphis, I probably wouldn't train jiu-jitsu. and I would probably move out to Arkansas or East Tennessee and fly fish.
I always thought I'd be a Montana guy and fly fish. I always saw myself as a cowboy, but then I realized cowboying is really hard.
Right.
So
there's something about getting out in nature, getting along a creek, fishing by yourself. And I think it's something, I believe that God can talk to you then.
Yeah.
And kind of guide you. And so I started fly fishing, and I got into fly tying with the help of Orvis in Memphis, and Leslie. She's a manager of the store now, and she helped support me, and I started tying flies, and I was like, hey man, you know what? I can make some crappie jigs. So I started tying crappie jigs, spinners. Nice. And then I was like, man, you know what? I can draw. I did some art when I was a kid and in high school and stuff. So I started doing artwork, and I started doing these Christmas shows and craft shows. Nice. And I've done that for 2 years now. This will be going on my third year of having this. And it's therapeutic. I don't expect, now it's also, and my dream is for it to be an exit plan.
Yeah, man, look, you got to have stuff that you enjoy. And when you get to those golden years, you're supposed to be golden for a reason. So you're doing what you want to do. Right. Not what you feel like you need to be doing all the time. Right. And I'm hoping that this will be my exit plan one day, where I'm just doing cool interview stuff.
Absolutely.
And, motivational speaking. I wish I would have brought you a lure. To wrap up on this, my dad used to make lures, and he passed away in 2020, and he made these little spring-like spinnerbait deals, and they're awesome. And I've got a handful of them left out there. And so true fishermen, I will hand those out to you. So at some point I'm going to get one of those to you, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
It's my dad's legacy, and he didn't teach me that skill, but then again, to be quite honest, I don't know that I had the patience. I got the ADDs. Yeah, so, I did it. So I need to be busy sometimes. But so Dennis, as we wrap up, is there anything you want to leave my listeners with? Any kind of last parting words?
Yeah, I just don't give up, and it's a journey, and you have to grind.
You do.
You have to grind, and I wish I could give you something that would stop the pain and make it better, but I can't. And I can give you some advice, and I hope you enjoyed what you've heard, and I hope I've kind of inspired you not to give up.
Yeah. And you're not by yourself out there.
No,
you're not by yourself.
No, not at all. There's other people out there. In fact, somebody told me something the other day, and I was like, I've been through it, so it didn't surprise me. So, it's like they were struggling. I was like, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Open up.
It's okay.
Yep. Dennis, I can't thank you enough. I love you, brother. Thank you for coming on, sharing your story. I know it's a very intimate story. I know it's vulnerable, and in the end, it's something that needed to be heard.
I appreciate you having me. I'm very humbled.
Yeah.
Very humble.
Well, me as well. I want to thank all my listeners, always tuning in, being kind out there, sending me the messages. Man, I got a flood this past week. I'm just so grateful. And I am humbled as well, because I don't really see myself as doing anything important, but it is my listeners, and it ultimately is, of course, my guests that come on and share their stories. But I want to thank y'all. I want to ask you to please continue to support. Go to my social media sites. Go to my website, motivatewithcoachcamp.com. And until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up, it's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't be scared. Just stepping up, don't be scared. while he's looking back. Mirror breaks after math. When I hate, I attack. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. When I feel like this, I'm immortal.